Let's take a closer look at the definition and prevalence. A whole grain retains the bran and the germ, which are the fiber and nutrients of the grain. A refined grain, on the other hand, has the bran and the germ removed, so you're just left with starch. You can see that clearly in this diagram. The whole grain retains the bran and the germ, and the refined grain is just starch. We can examine a side-by-side comparison of a common whole grain and refined grain to see the difference. Brown rice on the left and white rice on the right. Brown rice has 3.5 grams of fiber per serving. White rice has 0.5 grams of fiber per serving. That means brown rice, which is whole, has 7 times more fiber than the refined counterpart, white rice. An optimal feature about whole grains is when you eat them in their whole kernel form. This is as opposed to having the grain milled into flour and baked into something before you eat it. When you eat grains in their whole grain form, they retain their fibrous structure and take longer to digest once they reach your gut. What this means is they don't rapidly get absorbed. They don't rapidly turn into blood sugar when you eat them. The process of digestion occurs more slowly. And that slow time of digestion, when you eat grain in its whole kernel form, turns out to be very important to your health, and we'll discuss that in a bit. So when we're talking about whole grains, we're talking about grains that retain the bran and the germ, and ideally grains that are in their whole kernel form. What this means are that even whole grain varieties of breads and baked goods should be limited in preference to having grain without being milled and without having the bran and the germ removed. We're talking about 3 servings of whole grains. A serving is half of a cup of a cooked grain. And in terms of how many Americans are actually eating whole grains, only 15.9% of grains consumed in the US are whole grains.